Purple Asparagus is a nonprofit organization that educates children and families and the community about healthy eating. Founding Executive Director Melissa Graham is here with more about the program and food that is good for the body and for the planet. Welcome to Community Connection. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Purple Asparagus, let's start by talking about where did the name come from?
Where did the name came from? When we first started out, we had a board member who was a writer, and he came up with a huge list, 20 names or so, very traditional things, from field to home, a whole other bunch of them. And the last one, out of left field, was Purple Asparagus. And it immediately resonated with so many of us because that's a large part of what we do, is to teach kids that not all tomatoes are red and not all asparagus is green, and that there's so much diversity out there when you move away from the grocery store and get out to the farmers markets.
A big part of the component that you do is educational, and you talked about children. Your mission is to what?
Oh, our mission is to educate children, families, and the community about eating that's good for the body and the planet.
And you start, or what you teach is to start like from the ground up. So you're really promoting organic food and locally grown food and not processed food.
Absolutely. Each of our classes, our flagship program is called Delicious Nutritious Adventures, and each of those classes focuses on a specific seasonal fruit or vegetable. And so the first half of each class is a tasting and exploration where the kids get to open them up, feel them, smell them, look at them, and learn about the history, how they're grown, who grows them, what role they've played, if any, in history. And then the second half is a cooking class. We get the kids to have hands-on recipes that they try from start to finish. And, it gets them engaged and it gets them really willing to try something that they might not have done at home.
And so, because kids are not typically the grocery shoppers and they're not typically the cooks at home, how do you impart that knowledge from the children to the parents?
We always provide handouts to the parents at the end of the year so that they get a whole recipe book of every single recipe that the kids have made each month that we come into the schools.
And how do you get into the schools, or which schools are you in?
Well, we're in schools all over Chicago, from the tippy top of Rogers Park down to the South Shore neighborhood in Chicago. So we're really not geographically limited. Most of the schools that we work with are in underserved communities, so they're largely low income. How the schools choose us and how we choose them is usually someone in the community, whether it be a teacher or a parent or the principal, will call us up and say, do you have availability? And if we do, then we start a conversation and see if it's the right fit.
And how often are you with the students?
We're with them for an hour each month.
Okay, and that fits into their curriculum how?
All of our lesson plans are aligned with Illinois learning standards. So there's science and, as I said, history and cultural learning that's imparted through our lesson plans.
You came from a totally different background. You came from corporate law, and then you transitioned. Tell me how this became your passion.
I'd always been extremely passionate about food. My mom was a teacher, and she, so many of our adventures at home had to do with food and good food, whether it be going out to the farm stands on the east end of Long Island where I grew up, or making pretzels, homemade pretzels for my father for him to have when he came home. And so that was, that's what instilled originally in me that passion. And I just started to cook on my own when I went to college and when I went to law school. And what was once a hobby became a real passion and obsession. And I decided that I needed to do something with food.
And you had an interaction with First Lady Michelle Obama. This is also one of her passions. Tell us about that connection.
Yeah, well, I actually have two connections to Mrs. Obama. I was one of the chefs that was invited to the White House for the launch of Chefs Move to School. So I was one of the 700 other chefs with the big picture and everybody wearing the white chef coats. And that program is something that we're working on here in Chicago. We have a day called Chefs Move to School Chicago, where chefs will go to various schools throughout the city and teach one of our lesson plans. But the personal connection that I had is after I was after I left the law, I had started a catering company. And I catered a very small dinner party at her home for her and 4 of her closest friends, including Desiree Rogers and Supreme Court Justice Kagan.
Well, a great story, a wonderful website, purpleasparagus.com. It has lots of information, including recipes that you've created, and it's a great lesson and a lifestyle. So thank you for being with us today, Melissa.
Thank you.